Hey guys, tonight we're easing into something gentle, ancient, and just a little bit unsettling. The slow, steady process of growing old in ancient Greece. You're standing on a sun-warmed stone threshold in a world where sandals slap against dusty roads, olive trees sway like they're whispering secrets, and every neighbour knows exactly how many wrinkles you have. The air smells faintly of figs and hearth smoke, and you, yes, you, are inching into elderhood whether you meant to or not. And honestly, you probably won't survive this the way a modern person would. There's no doctor's office, no pharmacy, and definitely no ergonomic chair waiting to save your spine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before dawn, not because you want to, but because your joints have decided that sleep is now an optional concept. The clay tiles above your bed glow faintly as the first hints of sunrise find their way in. You shift, which your body interprets as a personal attack. And yet, you're still lucky. In ancient Greece, making it to what your neighbours call old age already sets you apart. Most people don't get here. A mainstream fact historians highlight is that many Greeks never lived long enough to see true wrinkles. Reaching 60 put you in the community's unofficial, respected but creaky club. But your role is changing. You feel it every morning when you step outside. The younger men, well, men, but they're basically loud goats with arms, move with the eager bounce of people who still believe their knees will last forever. Meanwhile, you trudge, your steps deliberate, not slow exactly, but cautious, like you've learned the ground sometimes argues back. There's a faint breeze rolling in from the sea, carrying the smell of brine and hope. You lean on your walking stick, don't worry, everyone pretends not to notice you're using it more these days, and shuffle toward the courtyard. The house is a typical Greek oikos, whitewashed walls, a central open space, and the faint sound of someone already grinding grain. Life moves around you whether you feel ready for it or not. One quirky tidbit people forget. Some Greeks swore that aging was caused by a gradual drying out of the body, like you were a loaf of bread left too close to the fire, which, rude, but not entirely inaccurate on days when your skin feels like parchment that's been through a few too many summers. You settle on a low stool, which is the ancient Greek equivalent of the world's worst chair. There is no back support. There is no cushioning. There is only the knowledge that you will need to stand up again later, and that future you is going to resent current you deeply. A chicken wanders by and gives you a judgmental stare. You've been around long enough to know that chickens judge everyone. You're fine with it. You think about the years behind you. Harvests, winters, feasts, arguments, laughter echoing in the symposium courtyard, the faces of friends who didn't make it this far. Growing old here isn't just a biological situation, it's a shift in your social gravity. People look at you differently. Children are told not to bother you unless they absolutely must, which means they bother you constantly, but with slightly more respect. Hovering in the back of your mind is something scholars still debate today. Did ancient Greeks truly honour elders the way later philosophers idealised? Or was that mostly wishful thinking written by old men who didn't feel appreciated? Historians still argue whether Greek society genuinely valued the old, or simply tolerated them as long as they didn't grumble too loudly. Judging by the way one young neighbour loudly sighs whenever you take more than 4 seconds to finish a sentence, you suspect the truth leans somewhere in the middle. But even if the young don't always appreciate your pacing, the world around you is subtly designed to pull you into a new phase. Aging, in this place, isn't a tragedy. It's a transition. You move from active labour to advisory presence, from doer to rememberer, from swinging a sickle to telling someone how you once wielded one with alarming enthusiasm. A dog trots by, scruffy, independent, the kind the Greeks half adopted and half tolerated. It noses your hand. You scratch behind its ears because, honestly, this is the best part of your morning. Dogs haven't changed much in 3,000 years. They're still convinced they're the main characters and everyone else is just set dressing. The sun climbs higher, painting the courtyard in gold. You feel its warmth on your shoulders, soothing the ache there, You close your eyes for a moment. Not napping, no, just resting your thoughts, which is a perfectly valid Greek elder activity. And listen to the murmurs of your household waking around you. A young woman carries water past you and nods respectfully. A boy races by chasing a hoop made of bent metal, nearly colliding with the amphorae stacked by the wall. You mutter something about children these days, which is a phrase that predates written history and probably existed in caveman times as well. You rub your knees, thinking about the day ahead. It won't be rushed. Age has given you the strange privilege of slowness. You do less, but you notice more. The way the olive leaves flutter like tiny silver fish, the way the village rooster crows slightly off-key, the way a neighbour's voice always rises when she lies. And despite your body's protest, there's a quiet pride in having made it this far. You're not fast, but you're still here. You're not glamorous, but you're part of a world that values memory as much as strength. And whether the young admit it or not, they watch you carefully. They're learning, even when they pretend they're not. You shift again, inhale the dusty morning air and let your thoughts settle like grain at the bottom of a jar. Growing old in ancient Greece isn't easy, but it's its own kind of victory. The morning drifts forward at its own lazy pace, and you drift with it, easing into the routines that now define your days. You're no longer rushing to the fields at first light, nor are you hauling amphorae or wrestling with stubborn goats. Those tasks belong to younger, more flexible vertebrae. Your life has slowed, but not in a bleak way, more like a long exhale, stretched over years instead of seconds. You take a few careful steps toward the edge of your courtyard, feeling that familiar stiffness in your hips. It's the kind of sensation you pretend not to notice, even though it announces itself every time you stand up, sit down, breathe, or contemplate doing any of the above. You reach for your staff. Yes, you only use it on uneven ground, but also the ground seems suspiciously uneven everywhere these days. A faint laugh escapes you. If the younger version of you saw how long it now takes to get from the doorway to the olive tree at the far end of your property, he'd probably make some heroic vow to never let that happen. As if anyone has ever negotiated with time and won. You shuffle toward the small raised hearth where breakfast preparations begin. In ancient Greece, mornings are simple. A bit of barley bread, maybe olives, possibly figs if you're lucky. There's no coffee, no tea, no energy drinks, just ambient sunlight and pure stubbornness pulling you through the first hours. A mainstream fact from Greek daily life. Most people lived on a diet heavy in cereals, olives, wine, and cheese, with meat reserved for festivals, which explains why every elder you know moves with the strong, slow reliability of someone who has eaten barley for 6 consecutive decades. As you chew the dense bread, you notice your teeth are performing as though they've signed a non-compete agreement with chewing itself. You manage, though. You always manage. And if you need to dunk the bread in watered wine to soften it, well, that's not a concession, that's cultural. You sit for a moment, letting your gaze drift to the horizon. The morning light is still soft enough to be kind to your eyesight. A neighbour waves at you from the street, her hair wrapped in a cloth that's seen more summers than your knees. She's your age, give or take a few harvests, but walks with the speed of someone who refuses to admit she's slowing down. You admire the spirit. You also know her knees have a secret arrangement with the gods that involves constant negotiation. One quirky tidbit you've heard over the years. Greeks believed that older people naturally produced colder blood, which made them more sluggish. You're not entirely convinced, but on chilly mornings when your joints lock up like poorly maintained door hinges, you're willing to entertain the idea. After breakfast, you step outside, leaning heavily on the doorframe for just a beat longer than you once did. The sunlight hits you full in the face, warm and bright, and for a brief moment you feel 16 again, until your back reminds you that nostalgia has limits. The street is already alive with noise. Children run barefoot through dust that puffs up around them in little clouds. A vendor pushes a cart full of figs, shouting prices that mysteriously rise whenever he sees tourists, sailors, or anyone he thinks might have coin. A dog naps in the shade of a ceramic pot that's definitely not his. You decide to walk. Not far, just a slow loop around your block. This has become part of your daily rhythm, partly to keep your legs from surrendering entirely, partly to remind everyone that yes, you're still alive, thank you very much. Your gait is measured, your steps careful. When younger people pass you, they sometimes offer a polite nod or even help steady you if the stones are slick. Other times they breeze by with the speed of people who think time is infinite and their joints are immortal. Let them believe it. They'll find out. Historians still argue whether the average day for an older Greek was leisurely or lonely. Some records describe elders surrounded by family, given light duties and constant company. Others suggest many spent long, quiet hours alone, watching life swirl around them without expecting much involvement. Your experience? Somewhere in between. There are days when you feel like part of the village's warm pulse, and days when the world seems to move just a bit faster than you can follow. You sit on a stone step near a neighbour's wall and let your legs rest. No one questions this, because resting is practically a sanctioned elder activity. There's even an unspoken rule. If an elder sits down, you don't make them get up unless the house is on fire, and even then, you think it over. As you watch the day unfold, you notice something you once overlooked. The subtleties of ancient daily life, the way women flick water onto dusty ground when sweeping, so the dirt settles politely instead of rising angrily. How potters test clay with a practiced squeeze, how fishermen mend nets with fingers that move faster than thought. You see these moments now because your pace lets you. Life hasn't stopped, it's simply stretched. 1 task per day is enough. 2 is ambitious, 3 is delusional. Your joints creak in agreement. You eventually rise, using your staff like a loyal friend. The shadows are shifting, the sun climbs higher. The air smells like warmed stone and possibility. You're older now, slower. But you're still woven into this world like a steady thread. One that may not sparkle like it once did, but gives the whole tapestry its depth. Your day continues, patient and unhurried. Your slow walk home gives you just enough time to mentally prepare for the next part of your day. Family. In ancient Greece, family isn't just the people you live with. It's an entire gravitational system, and as you age, your place within that orbit shifts in ways both comforting and occasionally exhausting. You step back into the courtyard and immediately feel the subtle tension that comes with being an elder in a multi-generational household. Everyone respects you, mostly. They listen to you, sometimes. They obey you, rarely, unless it aligns with what they already wanted to do. Still, your presence carries weight. Not the dramatic king on a throne kind of weight, but the soft, persistent influence of someone who has seen enough summers to recognize trouble 2 miles out. Your daughter greets you first. She's stirring a pot over the small hearth, and the smell of lentils fills the air. She gives you a polite nod and a smile, the kind of smile reserved for elders who require gentle patience. You pretend not to notice. You absolutely notice. A mainstream fact here. In ancient Greece, the oikos, the household, was the centre of life, and elders often shifted into advisory roles as they aged. You're in that stage now. People ask your opinion on crop timing, marriage prospects, and what to do about the neighbour's rooster that crows like it's auditioning for a tragedy. They don't always follow your advice, but they ask, and that matters. Your son emerges next, younger and sturdier, carrying a bundle of firewood. He sets it down with theatrical ease, no doubt aware you're watching. You smile. You used to show off like that too. Now you show off by successfully remembering where you left your sandals. Children run through the courtyard, their energy an absolute insult to your current physical state. One of them skids to a stop in front of you. "Can you tell us a story later?" he asks, eyes wide with the hope and manipulation only a child can combine so effortlessly. You promise you will. You always do. But family expectations in this world aren't just sweet, they're practical. You're an elder now, which means you've become part wise counsellor, part emotional anchor, and part honorary guardian of a household's secrets. You know which cousin borrowed money and never paid it back. You know who pretends to dislike figs but sneaks them at night. You know which neighbour's marriage is only held together by excellent olives and sheer denial. There's also an unspoken expectation that you will help maintain family harmony. Disputes, you settle them. Feuds, you soothe them. Dramatic outbursts, you neutralise them with your most powerful elder weapon, weary disappointment. One quirky tidbit. Some households believed that elders carried a kind of household luck, like human good luck, charms who maintained spiritual equilibrium simply by being present, which honestly feels like a lot of responsibility for someone whose knees audibly click when they stand. You sit on a cushioned mat, mercifully softer than that stone step earlier, and watch your family at work. Your daughter prepares food. Your son organizes tools for the day's tasks. A younger child chases a chicken that does not wish to be chased. There's comfort in the routine, even if your role is less hands-on than it once was. Yet there's a tension too, a gentle one but real. You're no longer the center of the household in a practical sense. You're a respected presence, yes, but you're also slowly transitioning into someone who is cared for rather than someone who provides care. And despite the warmth of family life, that shift takes getting used to. Historians still argue whether elders in ancient Greece wielded real authority, or whether later writers romanticized their influence. It's possible the truth varied from home to home. Some elders ruled with quiet power, others blended into the background like a well-loved vase no one wants to break. You're somewhere in between. Your advice is sought, but often filtered through the bustling priorities of younger adults who still think time is their personal servant. Your granddaughter brings you a bowl of water to wash your hands. She's careful, gentle. You thank her, and in that moment you feel the strange balance of age. You're weaker now, but more cherished. More fragile, but more deeply woven into the fabric of family memory. You think back to your own parents and grandparents, how they seemed impossibly old when you were young, how their words felt heavy with experience. And now here you are, the one with stories, the one with scars, the one with knowledge that only time, relentless, unbending time, can give. One of the younger boys runs up again. "Can we go to the agora later?" he asks. "Please?" You walk slow, but that's okay. You laugh. One of your 3-section jokes, delivered with the mild sarcasm of someone who fully embraces the speed of a tortoise. You rest a hand on the boy's head and tell him perhaps later, depending on how your legs negotiate with the gods this afternoon. The child nods solemnly, as if this is the most reasonable condition imaginable. Your family moves around you, busy, loud, vibrant, and you sit in the middle of it like a still point, a quiet witness to the rhythm of life. The roles shift, yes, but the bonds hold. And as the day unfolds, you feel something warm settle in your chest. You're old now, but you're not alone. Your stomach gives a polite but insistent reminder that age does not grant exemptions from hunger, and you soon find yourself drifting toward the midday meal. Eating in ancient Greece isn't glamorous. No fancy spices from far-off lands, no shiny cutlery, no afternoon snacks with names that sound like luxury perfumes. Just simple, honest food. And at your age, half the challenge is making sure the food goes down without putting up a fight. Your daughter places a bowl in front of you. Barley porridge drizzled with a bit of olive oil, a few figs on the side, and, because you've lived long enough to earn it, a small chunk of cheese that would make a goat proud. You sniff it, nod approvingly, and begin eating at the pace of someone negotiating with their teeth every step of the way. A mainstream historical fact slips into your mind. The ancient Greek diet was famously heavy on grains, olives, wine, and legumes. Meat was rare for everyday people and appeared mostly during festivals or sacrifices. So yes, you're essentially powered by olives, beans, and dreams, and occasionally honey, if the gods are merciful. Today, however, you've got something else on your mind, remedies. Because old age has arrived with a long list of gentle reminders that your body is no longer the eager, cooperative machine it once was. Your joints stiffen, your shoulders ache, your eyesight blurs in and out like a badly tuned water clock, and your stomach occasionally decides that digestion is more of a polite suggestion than a duty. Your daughter hands you a small cup of warm herbal infusion. You didn't ask for it. You never ask for these things. She gives you that look, the one that silently says, "Drink this, or I will personally inform the whole village that you fell asleep on the roof again." You sip it. It tastes like boiled sorrow. Still, it helps. A little. Greek households had a whole arsenal of remedies for aging bodies. Olive oil massages for stiffness, fennel or mint for digestion, honey for nearly anything, wine diluted with water to help with sleep, or, when necessary, to simply make you forget that your back has become a full-time employee of the painful surprises department. One quirky tidbit. Some Greeks believed rubbing toasted barley mixed with goat fat onto aching joints helped restore vitality. You've tried it. It made you smell like a roasted goat. Did it help your joints? Debatable. Did it make your grandchildren avoid hugging you for a day? Absolutely. After eating, you sit quietly, letting the warmth of food settle into your bones. Across the courtyard, your son is sharpening a sickle, and the rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape blends with the afternoon hum of bees drifting lazily among the flowers. The world slows, and you slow with it. Not because you choose to, but because this is what your body now demands. You shift on your stool. Your knee cracks loudly, loud enough that a passing neighbour glances over. You pretend nothing happened. The neighbour pretends not to judge. This is the fragile social contract of aging. You lean back slightly and think about health in this world, how different it is from anything a modern listener might expect. There is no hospital, no blood tests, no fancy names for chronic conditions. Most ailments are explained as imbalances: too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. You're basically living inside a cosmic soup recipe, and your job is to constantly reseason yourself back into harmony. Historians still argue whether Greek medical knowledge, especially in rural communities like yours, was rooted more in practical herbal wisdom or in philosophical theories about bodily humours. You've seen both. The old healer who knows every useful plant within 10 miles, and the earnest young man who thinks your swollen ankle is caused by a tragic surplus of cold moisture. Bless him. The afternoon grows warmer. You reach for a small pouch tied to your belt. Dried mint leaves. You chew one slowly. They clear your head just enough to feel the world shine for a moment. Your granddaughter appears again, carrying a jar of olive oil. She sits beside you and starts rubbing it gently into your hands. Hands that have held tools, clay cups, crops, children, and countless memories. The warmth of the oil eases the stiffness, and you exhale, long and quiet. "You should rest," she says softly. "I am resting," you reply, despite being very clearly awake, sitting upright, and pretending your back isn't plotting an uprising. She smiles, because she knows exactly what you mean. In ancient Greece, rest isn't defined by stillness. It's defined by slowness, by letting the world move at a speed your body no longer tries to match. You stand eventually, though the process takes long enough that a passing chicken completes a full lap around the courtyard before you're upright. You brush your robe, stretch a little, and feel the warm ache of age move through you like a familiar friend. Meals, remedies, aches, and awkward herbal concoctions, these now shape the rhythm of your days. But there's comfort in that rhythm. There's dignity too. Not the flashy kind, the quiet kind. The kind built from decades of work, years of relationships, and the simple fact that you, despite everything, are still standing. And in ancient Greece, that alone is a remarkable achievement. The warmth of the afternoon eases into the softer light of early evening, and with it comes the part of your day that feels both strange and oddly satisfying. The steady fading of physical work and the slow, almost sneaky rise of your reputation as a wise elder. You didn't ask for it. You're not entirely sure you deserve it. But here it is anyway, settling on your shoulders like a very dignified cloak that occasionally slips off when you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. You sit beneath the olive tree in your courtyard, the same tree you once climbed as a child, the same tree you pruned in your youth, the same tree you avoided during your 30s because you were convinced it attracted bees who specifically hated you. Now it offers shade, and age has taught you that shade is one of the gods' greatest gifts. Your hands rest in your lap, and you take a moment to enjoy the stillness. For most of your life, your days were filled with physical labour, harvesting, hauling, crafting, building, repairing, lifting, arguing with stubborn tools and occasionally fighting with a goat who refused to negotiate. That was the expectation. You worked because the household needed you to. But now, something has changed. No one hands you tools anymore unless they're asking for advice on how they should use them. No one expects you to carry amphora or bend over to weed the garden. People don't tell you this outright. They just quietly stop assigning you tasks that involve bending, lifting, or risking structural collapse. And you know what? You accept that. Happily. A mainstream historical fact. In many Greek communities, older adults transitioned out of heavy labour and into advisory or supervisory roles. Their bodies slowed, but their minds became repositories of decades' worth of practical experience. You're living that right now. Every time someone calls your name with the phrase, "What do you think about?" you can feel your status shifting. Today it's your neighbour who approaches, holding a cracked pottery vessel. "I heard you used to fix these," she says, lowering it onto the bench beside you. "I used to fix a lot of things," you reply, including people who insisted they didn't need help carrying heavy baskets, she laughs. You inspect the cracked clay, running your fingers along the line. Your hands are slower now, clumsier than they once were, but your eyes recognize the flaw instantly. You tell her how to mend it, what mixture of clay to use, how long to let it dry, and how not to drop it again unless she wants to give you more work. One of your 3 gentle, sarcastic jokes. It lands perfectly. You may not be able to physically repair the pot anymore, not without risking your hands staging a dramatic rebellion, but you can guide someone else through the process. That's something. And the truth is, people seek you out for more than repairs. Questions drift your way like bees searching for nectar. When should the barley be planted this season? Is the new shepherd trustworthy? Should the young couple down the street get married? Or are they one argument away from throwing amphorae at each other? You've lived long enough to know that you don't always have the right answers, but you always have a story that points toward one. One quirky tidbit. Some Greeks believed that elders possessed a kind of innate philosophical purity, as if old age naturally moved people closer to wisdom. In practice, you found that age mostly moves you closer to naps, but you accept the compliment. You remember being young, how elders seemed to know everything, how their voices carried weight in family decisions, how they could silence a room with a single raised eyebrow. Now here you are, raising eyebrows of your own. Not intentionally. That's just what your face does now. Still, there's power in this new role. A soft power. A gentle influence. A kind of authority that doesn't need volume to be heard. Historians still argue whether elders in ancient Greece were genuinely respected or merely tolerated out of obligation. Some records describe elderly men honoured in councils and allowed to speak first at gatherings. Others show complaints about elders being set in their ways or annoyingly slow. You suspect both were true. Respect and irritation can coexist, after all. You see it in the way your son listens carefully to your advice, then sighs loudly when you insist on repeating it twice to make sure he really heard it. The sun dips lower, bathing the courtyard in warm gold. Children gather at your feet, some yours, some belonging to neighbours, all of them curious. They sit cross-legged, waiting, as if expecting you to produce ancient wisdom from your robe like some mystical Athenian magician. Tell us how people used to fight giants, one child asks. Tell us about the time you outran a storm, says another. You smile. They don't want facts. They want imagination shaped by memory, and you can give them that. Your voice flows easily, not loud, not rushed. You tell them about gods who disguised themselves as travellers, about storms that rolled in like angry chariots, about market days that felt like festivals, and festivals that felt like glimpses into the divine. You weave truth and myth together because, in ancient Greece, that's how stories work. The children listen with eyes wide and mouths slightly open, as if your words themselves were honey dripping from a clay jar. By the time you finish, the sun has settled behind the rooftops, and the air carries the chill of approaching night. You lean back slowly, your spine making a noise that could easily double as a warning from the underworld. Your work these days isn't in the fields. It isn't in crafting, or building, or carrying. Your work is in remembering, in guiding, in offering something no young person can, perspective shaped by time. Wisdom rises where labour fades, and you, one of the lucky few to reach this age, carry that wisdom like a lantern lit by the decades of your life. And tonight, it glows softly in your hands. By the time the next morning arrives, you feel rested enough. Well, rested in the uniquely ancient sense, where your joints still mutter complaints, and your lower back holds a small grudge against the concept of lying down. But the day calls, and with it comes one of your favourite slow rituals, wandering through the agora. It's not a grand adventure. It's not supposed to be. It's simply a chance to move at your own pace, to see familiar faces, and to absorb the steady pulse of life in the heart of the city. The agora is more than a marketplace. It's the social core, the rumour hub, the public living room, and the unofficial fitness test for elders. If you can cross it without tripping, fainting, or being aggressively greeted by someone selling fish, you're doing well. You step onto the street, your staff gently tapping the stones in an irregular rhythm that somehow comforts you. Your feet know this walk, your mind knows it even better. Every twist of the path holds a memory, some loud, some faint, all softened by time. As you approach the agora, The noise hits you first. Merchants shouting, goats protesting their existence, pottery clinking, children laughing, and one man loudly trying to convince everyone that his olives are blessed by Apollo himself. You smile. They're not. You've tasted them. They taste like disappointment and salt. A mainstream historical fact. The Agora wasn't just for buying and selling. It was a gathering place for politics, philosophy, gossip, legal disputes, religious processions, and the general swirl of Greek public life. If something happened in your city, you could be sure someone here already had a strong opinion about it, and had probably shared that opinion loudly. Your steps slow automatically as you merge into the flow of people. Younger adults weave around you like river water around a stone. Some nod respectfully. An elder in the Agora is still a presence worth acknowledging. Others zoom past with the carelessness of youth. You don't mind. You walked like that once too. You pause by a pottery stall, not to buy. Your hands would revolt if you tried to carry home anything heavier than a fig, but to examine the craftsmanship. The potter recognizes you and lifts a hand. Still judging my work, old friend? Still giving me reason to, you reply, delivering your first gentle joke of the section. He cackles, delighted, and insists you come closer. You do, not because you plan to purchase anything, but because he genuinely wants your opinion. Age has given you an odd sort of expert authority. You step away eventually, drifting toward the shade of a colonnade. The marble columns are cool beneath your fingertips. You lean against one subtly, pretending it's just for aesthetic appreciation. Really, it's so your knees can file a formal complaint without collapsing entirely. People pass by in a steady stream. A priest carrying offerings. A fisherman with nets slung over his shoulder. A group of young men headed toward the wrestling grounds, their bodies glistening, their confidence outrageous. You watch them for a moment, remembering when your stride looked like that, when your joints didn't make noise, when exhaustion came from action rather than waking up. Your mind wanders to a quirky tidbit you once heard. Some Greeks believed that elders possessed a special kind of social coolness, a calm authority born from surviving life's storms. It's flattering, though you suspect what they really meant was that older people just didn't have the energy for dramatic nonsense anymore. A dog trots up, thin, scruffy, undeniably charming in the way only street dogs can manage. It stops, assesses you, and rests its head on your knee. You scratch behind its ears. You've never owned this dog. This dog has never owned you. But in the Agora, you share a silent agreement. You're both tired of the marketplace shouting. Someone calls your name. You turn slowly because turning quickly is a hobby for the young. It's an acquaintance approaching, a man who always walks like he's late to an appointment with destiny. He greets you enthusiastically and immediately launches into a question about land boundaries and property lines. You smile, nod, and offer advice. You don't know everything about land disputes, but you know enough about human stubbornness to help. Historians still argue whether elders in ancient agoras were treated as respected advisors or were subtly pushed aside by more vigorous citizens. The reality you live feels like a blend. People seek your counsel, yes, but some dismiss you with the gentle condescension of the young who believe wisdom is optional. You walk on, slowly, intentionally. The Agora is no longer a place where you conduct business or debate politics. It's a place where you exist, quietly, observantly, as the world spins around you with its own noisy energy. But your presence still matters. Children wave at you. Merchants greet you by name. A few younger men pause their debate long enough to include you with a respectful nod, even if they don't actually want you chiming in with, "Back in my day." You stop by a bench, just a simple plank of wood supported by stones, and lower yourself onto it with the cautious precision of someone diffusing a trap. You sit, breathing in the scent of olives, dust, sweat, and freshly baked bread drifting through the air. Life rushes past you, but you're in no hurry. You watch, you listen. You absorb the small dramas, a woman haggling fiercely over fish, a man tripping on absolutely nothing and pretending he meant to do it, a group of kids inventing a game with a pebble and boundless imagination. Being here reminds you you're part of something larger than your household, larger than your aches, larger even than your years. You're part of the city's memory, one more voice humming in the great chorus of everyday life. Your body may be slower, but your place in the Agora is steady, and the world, noisy as it is, seems to make room for you. The walk home from the agora takes a little longer today. Your legs feel like they've been personally insulted by every pebble on the road. But you make it back with your dignity intact, and only one brief negotiation with your left knee. By the time you step through your doorway, the air has cooled just enough to nudge you toward your next quiet duty, tending to the small but comforting religious rituals that shape your life as an elder. In ancient Greece, worship isn't something you attend once a week. It's woven into the rhythm of your days, small gestures repeated over years until they become part of your heartbeat. And now, as age wraps itself around you like a well-worn cloak, those duties deepen. You're not climbing hills to reach temples anymore, or lifting heavy offerings or standing in long festival processions. But there are roles reserved for people like you, roles gentler, slower, more reflective. You step into the courtyard where the family shrine stands against the far wall. A simple stone altar with soot-darkened edges, a few small figurines, and yesterday's offerings arranged neatly by your daughter. You take a quiet breath and approach it with the careful steps of someone who refuses to let stiff joints ruin a sacred moment. This is where your presence still carries real weight. A mainstream fact, Greek households centered their spiritual life on the hearth and the family altar, offering food, wine, incense, and prayers to household gods like Hestia and Zeus Ktesios. Older members of the household often oversaw these rituals, acting as calm, steady guides for the younger generation. You kneel, not gracefully, not quickly, but successfully, which is what matters. Your granddaughter is already there, arranging a few sprigs of herbs. She looks up at you with the wide-eyed solemnity of a child performing something important. "Will you light the incense?" she asks. You smile. "If I don't, the gods might complain about being neglected." Your second light joke of the section, gentle, warm, exactly the kind children love because it makes the divine feel familiar. You strike the flint. The incense smoke rises in a slow spiral, curling into the air like a sleepy serpent. Its scent, resin, herbs, and the faint sweetness of burned myrrh wraps softly around you. Your granddaughter imitates your posture, watching the smoke with a reverence that reminds you of yourself at her age. You murmur a prayer, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet thanks. For safety, for family, for the food on your table, for waking up again this morning even though your spine tried hard to prevent it. In old age, gratitude becomes simpler. You shift carefully back to your feet, using your staff for support. Your granddaughter reaches out instinctively to steady you. You pretend you don't need the help. She pretends she's not helping. This is your unspoken agreement. Later, you make your way to the hearth, where your daughter prepares a small offering for the gods of the home, a pinch of grain, a bit of wine, a fragment of bread. These offerings aren't for show, they're part of keeping the household balanced, spiritually, emotionally, even socially. One quirky tidbit. Some families believe that neglecting household gods could lead to minor misfortunes. Spoiled food, stubborn animals, broken pottery. Whether or not this was true, you've noticed the younger members of your household become strangely careful after each offering. Everyone works a little harder to keep harmony when the gods are watching. In your younger years, you would have taken part in the big rituals, festivals, processions, sacrifices at temples. Now walking long distances makes your joints draft a formal complaint, and standing in crowds feels like signing up for a sweaty endurance trial. So instead, your religious duties have shifted inward, toward the quiet spaces. Historians still argue whether older Greeks were truly given honoured ritual responsibilities, or whether families simply defaulted to elders because they were home more often. You suspect it's a little of both. You're not a priest or priestess, but your years give your voice a soft authority when you recite familiar hymns. The younger ones listen more closely when you speak of the gods, not because you're powerful, but because you carry memory. And in a culture that worships continuity, memory is sacred. As evening settles, your son enters the courtyard carrying a small basket of offerings for an upcoming local festival. He asks your opinion. Should they bring figs or barley cakes? You consider the options with the seriousness of a statesman weighing matters of state. Figs, you say. The gods have enough barley cakes, and figs never offended anyone. He laughs, shaking his head, but he follows your advice. Your third joke of the section lands with easy warmth. You watch him pack the basket and a soft feeling rises in your chest. You may not lead the rituals anymore, but your voice still shapes them. Your presence still anchors the spiritual rhythm of the household. Night deepens, the hearth glows, shadows stretch across the walls like slow-moving memories. You sit quietly, listening to the soft crackle of flames and the gentle chatter of your family preparing for sleep. Your religious duties aren't grand or dramatic, they're steady, personal, quiet, just like old age itself. And in their slowness, in their warmth, they offer a peaceful kind of purpose that fits exactly where you are in life. The next morning begins with a familiar stiffness settling into your limbs, less like a discomfort, and more like an old friend who insists on visiting unannounced. You stretch slowly, testing each joint like you're negotiating terms of peace. And once your body agrees to function at its usual slightly offended pace, you make your way outside, leaning into your staff as the first rays of sunlight paint the courtyard in soft gold. You know where you're going today, not to work, not to the agora, but to the training grounds just beyond the town's edge. It isn't your duty anymore, but you still go. You've gone for decades, and now, in old age, you go not to join the young men, but to watch, to remember, and to feel the strange sting of knowing that certain doors, once wide open, have quietly swung shut behind you. You take the familiar path toward the practice field, placing each foot carefully. The air smells of dust, olive trees, and somewhere in the distance sheep with opinions. By the time you reach the training grounds, the younger men are already at it, lunging, sweating, shouting, grappling in the dirt like a pack of well-muscled puppies. The thud of bodies hitting the ground echoes across the field. You lower yourself onto a nearby stone, easing down inch by inch with the grace of someone lowering a fragile artifact into a jar. A young man notices you and offers a respectful nod. "Feeling strong today, Elder?" "Strong enough to watch you fall on your face," you reply, the first of your section's gentle jokes. He laughs, returns to his group and immediately falls on his face. You smile, because sometimes the gods time things perfectly just for your entertainment. A mainstream historical fact rises in your thoughts. In many Greek city-states, military training was a constant expectation for young men. Wrestling, spear practice, running and formation drills prepared them for hoplite warfare. But elders, well, once you reached a certain age, the armour came off for good. Old men were still respected for past service, but no one expected them to march into battle unless every last option had failed. Watching them now stirs a familiar ache, not just the physical kind. There's nostalgia laced with pride, mixed with a pinch of grief for the version of yourself who once moved across this field with confidence instead of caution. One of the younger trainees approaches, spear in hand. "You used to fight, didn't you?" he asks, not with doubt, but with curiosity. You exhale slowly. "Used to," you say. "A long time ago. What was it like?" You consider his question. You could tell him about the weight of the shield, the heat of battle, the fear that wraps itself around your ribs like a tightening strap. You could tell him about friends lost and victories won, but instead you give him something gentler. "It was loud," you say, "and heavy, and nothing like the songs." Historians still argue whether elders idealized their battles or remembered them with brutal honesty. In your case, honesty wins. You've lived long enough to know reality doesn't need embellishment. The boy nods, thinking this over. He asks you how to balance his stance, how to shift his weight without losing footing. You show him, slowly, with your hands, not your body. Your limbs can't demonstrate it anymore, but your memory can, and memory in this place survives where muscle does not. Another young man calls out, challenging one of his friends to a race. They line up, ready to sprint. You watch, amused but also deeply aware of the distance between their world and yours. Once you ran like that. Barefoot, exhilarated, unstoppable. Now standing up too fast qualifies as high-risk athletic activity. A quirky tidbit drifts into your mind. Some Greek communities believed that older men retained a shadow strength. Not physical, but moral. The kind that came from surviving life's hardships. Younger men sometimes sought elders before battle to receive encouraging words or symbolic blessings, believing it boosted their courage. You remember doing that yourself once, approaching your grandfather and asking him to place a hand on your shoulder before your first campaign. Looking at the boys now, you understand how strange and circular life really is. You were them, and someday, if the gods grant it, they will be you, sitting on a stone, watching the next generation pretend they're invincible. A shout comes from the field. One boy attempts a dramatic spear throw that ends with the spear skidding across the ground like a confused stick. His friends laugh. He bows theatrically. You clap because you appreciate a man who can fail with style. Your second joke arrives naturally. If the enemy ever attacks from the direction of the dirt, you say, you'll be unstoppable. The boys laugh. The boy who threw the spear laughs hardest. Training continues. The sun climbs. Sweat glistens on young shoulders. Muscles flex. Sand shifts beneath eager feet. Voices carry across the field. You sit quietly, letting the sounds wash over you. You're not part of this world anymore, but you're still connected to it. Through memory, through mentorship, through the simple act of showing up. The third and final joke slips out as you rise to leave. One young man calls out, "Will you come back tomorrow?" If my knees agree, you say, they vote against walking almost every day now. As you turn to go, you feel the weight of many years settle around you, not heavy, but gentle. A reminder that you've lived long enough to watch generations rise in your wake. The path home is the same as always, but today it feels softer somehow, a little quieter, a little more peaceful. You may no longer step onto the field, but your footsteps still lead you to the edges of it, where memory and present meet in the shade of your old age. The afternoon drifts in with a warm, honey-coloured quiet, and you find yourself wandering back toward the shaded corner of your courtyard, the place where your old tools hang like relics from another life. You stand there for a moment, looking at them with a mixture of fondness and disbelief. Once, these tools felt like extensions of your hands. Now they feel like memories wearing wooden handles. You reach for the small carving knife you used for decades. Its handle is smooth from years of shaping, whittling and repairing, everything from broken stool legs to elaborate decorative patterns on small wooden boxes. You lift it, testing its weight. Your grip trembles slightly, not from fear but from age, the way an old tree sways even when the wind is lazy. Your granddaughter appears in the doorway. "Are you going to carve today?" she asks, curious. "Going to attempt it," you reply. "Whether my hands cooperate is between them and the gods." Your first gentle joke of the section, delivered with a wry smile. She giggles, then sits beside you on a small stool, one of the ones you built long before she was born. You lower yourself carefully onto your own stool, adjusting your robe, your back, your knees, your expectations. Everything needs adjusting these days. You pick up a small piece of olive wood and begin carving, slowly, cautiously. Once, your hands moved with quick, decisive cuts, producing smooth shapes almost effortlessly. Now, each motion is deliberate, controlled, and punctuated by pauses where you assess your grip like a craftsman negotiating with a stubborn apprentice. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your thoughts. Many Greek craftsmen, carpenters, potters, metalworkers, leathermakers, continued working in old age, but their roles often shifted. Precision tasks replaced heavy labour, guidance replaced speed. You've seen potters who couldn't throw clay anymore but could correct a student's technique with a single glance. You've seen metalworkers who no longer swung hammers but could identify flaws in bronze by sound alone. You're part of that tradition now, less maker, more mentor. Your granddaughter watches intently as the wood slowly takes shape. "You're good at this," she says. "Good enough," you answer. "But ask me to lift that basket of wood over there, and you'll hear my bones argue like angry philosophers." She laughs. Children love a good elder joke, especially one involving loud pretend grievances. You continue carving. The shape is emerging. A small horse, maybe, or perhaps a dolphin. At your age, part of the joy is not needing to decide immediately. The wood will reveal itself when it's ready. Your granddaughter leans against your arm. "Were you faster when you were young?" "Oh yes," you say. "I was fast, strong, and I believed I'd be that way forever." Youth is very optimistic and incorrect. There's affection in your voice, no bitterness, just truth softened by time. As you carve, the familiar scent of olive wood fills the air. The knife slips a little, not dangerously, just enough to remind you that your hands have limits now. You steady yourself, breathe, adjust your angle. You've learned not to fight your body. You work with it, even when it refuses to work with you. One quirky tidbit flashes across your memory. In some Greek workshops, elders were believed to carry the soul of the craft, meaning their presence alone helped maintain tradition and skill. Apprentices sometimes touched the tools an elder once used for good luck, believing some of that mastery would rub off through contact. You chuckle at the idea that your old tools might someday be considered lucky. Mostly they're just heavy. The sun shifts. A soft breeze rolls across the courtyard, bringing with it the sounds of daily life. Goats complaining, women chatting as they spin wool, distant laughter from the street. Life continues at its usual pace, but you operate at your own now, slow, steady, and surprisingly peaceful. Your son approaches, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You're carving again," he says with genuine warmth. "I could never get that right." "It takes patience," you reply, "and steady hands. I have one of those things." Your second light joke. He grins, shaking his head. He sits beside you for a few moments, watching the carving come to life. "I remember when you made my first toy sword," he says. You smile. "You broke it in 2 days." "It wasn't a good sword," he fires back. "It wasn't meant to be," you say. "It was meant to keep you out of trouble. It failed." Your son laughs. Deep, cheerful, familiar. The sound warms the air like a hearth. You think back to your younger years, when you could work from sunrise to sunset without your hands tiring, when your tools felt light as feathers, when your craft supported your household. You were proud then, you're proud now, but in a different way. Historians still argue whether Greek craftsmen retained economic relevance in old age or became financial dependents. The truth? It varied. Some elders continued earning modest income. Others shifted into advisory roles within family workshops. You fall somewhere in the middle. You no longer sell your work, but your knowledge shapes what your family creates. You set the half-finished carving on your knee. The wood horse, or dolphin, looks charmingly uneven. In your youth, that unevenness would have driven you mad. Now, it feels authentic. Your granddaughter touches it gently. Will you finish it? I will, you say. Eventually. I've reached an age where eventually covers many possibilities. Your third joke lands softly and she beams. Evening begins to settle, painting the sky in soft tangerine hues. You rise slowly, handing your granddaughter the carving to keep safe. Your hands feel tired, but pleasantly so. The kind of tired that comes not from strain, but from doing something gentle and familiar. You place your tools back on their hooks, giving each one a small nod of respect. They've served you well, and even though you can no longer use them the way you once did, you still feel connected to them, as if they're old friends who understand that time changes everyone. Your craft may not be what it was, but your touch still carries meaning. Your hands, though slower, still remember. And your legacy, carved piece by slow piece, continues to shape the world around you. The sky softens into a pale evening glow, and as the last traces of sunlight slide across the courtyard, you feel the familiar tug of reflection. The quiet awareness that aging doesn't unfold the same way for everyone. Not in ancient Greece, not in your home, not even within your own skin. Because here, growing old is shaped as much by your gender as by your years. You settle onto a low wooden bench near the doorway, easing yourself down with the careful choreography of someone who refuses to let gravity win without a polite argument first. Your knees pop, your hips protest, and the bench creaks in a way that suggests you both sympathize with each other's structural concerns. Your daughter is nearby, spinning wool with practiced motions. Your son is tying up bundles of kindling. The roles around you are familiar, almost ritualistic. But the expectations placed on each of you, those are different. Very different. A mainstream fact, in ancient Greece, aging was deeply gendered. An older man might gain a certain level of public respect, advisory authority, or involvement in community decisions. An older woman, on the other hand, often found her influence centered in the home, quiet but profound, rooted in experience, household management, and the raising of younger generations. You've seen this play out for decades. If you are a man, your younger self probably spent years in public life, working trades, attending assemblies if your city allowed it, going to festivals, debating prices in the agora, maybe even fighting in earlier campaigns. Aging now shifts you inward, but people still seek your thoughts. Men nod when you speak. Young boys watch you as if you contain secrets they're not ready to understand. If you are a woman, your younger self likely carried the household on your back, cooking, weaving, raising children, managing stores of grain, smoothing tempers, and holding together family life with quiet, relentless competence. Aging now brings a subtle, powerful change. You become the center of domestic wisdom. Younger women ask you how to treat fevers, how to judge fabric quality, how to soothe crying infants, how to keep peace between stubborn relatives. Your wisdom is the hearthfire everyone gathers around. But even with respect, the gendered paths diverge. Your daughter glances at you. "Your knees again?" she asks gently. "Always," you reply. "They wake up before I do." Your first soft joke of the section, dry as the summer hills. She smiles, but her expression carries something deeper, an understanding shared between generations. Age softens some things, but sharpens awareness. You watch her work the spindle, her fingers deft, sure. She moves with a confidence you remember feeling long ago. She's entering the phase where the household depends on her skill, and you can see the quiet weight of that expectation settling across her shoulders. If you were a woman in your youth, you know that weight well. It began when you were barely old enough to carry your own water jar. And if you were a man, the expectations you carried weren't lighter. They were simply different. You were expected to be strong, productive, decisive. Now, people still assume you have thoughts worth hearing, even when you forget where you placed your staff approximately 4 minutes ago. A neighbor passes by your gate. She's older than you, her hair wrapped tightly, her posture stooped but her voice firm. She's known as the kind of elder woman who can silence a rowdy household with a single look. Younger wives seek her advice daily. You give her a wave, she raises her brows in a way that indicates someone in her home is currently testing her patience. That expression is universal, timeless. One quirky tidbit: some Greek communities believed older women possessed a kind of spiritual potency because they were no longer involved in childbirth. Freed from that cycle, they were thought to have a closer connection to the divine. Sometimes revered, sometimes feared. You've known women like that, wise, mysterious, occasionally terrifying. A young man from down the street approaches carrying a basket. "My mother asked if you could look at this," he says shyly. Inside the basket is a small pile of herbs she gathered. She wants to know if they're good enough for the winter stores. You examine them, sniffing the leaves one by one. Slow work, deliberate. Your eyes may be weaker, but your sense of smell is still trustworthy. "These 3 are fine," you say. "This one is too old. This one tastes like disappointment." The boy wrinkles his nose, trying not to laugh. Your second gentle joke, delivered with the authority of someone who has tasted far too many questionable herbs. The boy thanks you and leaves. As he walks away, your daughter asks, "Do you ever miss being young?" You consider the question carefully. "Sometimes," you say, "but mostly I miss the parts where my back didn't try to assassinate me." She laughs. Warm, full, familiar. And yet your answer says something larger beneath the humour. Youth had its strengths, old age has its own. Historians still argue whether older women in ancient Greece held more influence than older men within the household sphere, or whether men retained ultimate authority regardless of age. The evidence is mixed. But in your daily life, you've seen how a grandmother's opinion can settle a dispute that 3 shouting men couldn't resolve. Meanwhile, older men often serve as quiet advisors, stepping in when young men clash over pride or decisions that require the wisdom of someone who has made and survived many mistakes. As dusk creeps across the courtyard, fireflies blink in the shadows. You lean back, letting the sounds of the household wrap around you, the clatter of weaving tools, the soft footfalls of younger family members, the sigh of someone settling onto a cushion after a long day. Whether you were a man or a woman, you've followed the path carved out for your gender since childhood. But now, in old age, those paths begin to converge, not perfectly, but gently. You're all simply elders, carriers of memory, keepers of stories, anchors for your families. You stretch your hands, feeling the familiar ache, and smile quietly to yourself. Age has given you challenges, but also authority, tenderness, insight, and a kind of peace that youth never offered. Your back may complain, but your spirit is steady. Your role may have changed, but it is no less meaningful. Your life may be slower, but its depth continues to grow. Your third and final joke surfaces as you rise for the night. If the gods wanted me to move faster at this age, they would have greased my joints themselves. Your daughter laughs. The stars blink awake overhead, and you, old, wise, and wonderfully stubborn, step into the deepening night with quiet dignity. Night fades gently into morning, and as the soft light spills into your home, you become aware once again of how much your surroundings shape your days. Ancient Greek houses weren't designed with elders in mind. No ramps, no cushioned chairs, no helpful handrails installed by thoughtful grandchildren. Yet somehow, these spaces have become your world, and navigating them, with all their quirks and obstacles, has become its own daily ritual. You rise from your sleeping mat with your usual negotiation, one hand braced against the wall, one knee considering mutiny, your spine cracking like an amphora that's been through one too many summers. You sit for a moment on the edge of the bedding, letting your body catch up with your intentions. Your granddaughter peeks in. Need anything? New knees, you say, deadpan. Your first soft joke of the section. She snorts. You stand with slow determination and make your way into the courtyard. The Greek oikos, your household, has a familiar layout. Rooms arranged around a central open space, a modest hearth, storage jars set neatly against the walls, a few wooden stools that seem to shrink each year. Or maybe you're less flexible. Hard to say. There's beauty in its simplicity, but also challenges, like the threshold stones. Oh, the threshold stones. Every doorway in this house features a raised lip at the bottom, a design choice that ancient builders apparently made while thinking, how can we make life just a little harder for old people? You lift your foot carefully, clear the stone, and exhale in triumph as you step into the courtyard without stubbing your toe. Victory. A mainstream fact. Ancient Greek homes were not standardized. Wealthier households had more elaborate rooms and private courtyards, while modest homes like yours were simple, functional, sometimes dimly lit, and often crowded with daily tools. Yet most shared one constant feature, the central courtyard, a space that held light, air, ritual, work, and daily life. You lower yourself onto a low stool, the same one you carved decades ago. It's not comfortable, but comfort wasn't a design priority in your youth, and apparently you never questioned that. Now you question everything the way a philosopher questions existence. Your daughter is grinding grain near the hearth, her movements rhythmic and strong. The smell of toasted barley wafts across the courtyard, mixing with fresh morning air. A chicken struts past you with the self-importance of a politician. You suspect it's mocking you, but you're too tired to argue. You look around your home with affection. The walls are plastered and painted in simple strokes. Sunlight dances across the floor through the open courtyard. Clay jars hold olives, oil, and dried fruit. Everything is familiar, sometimes too familiar. You know exactly where every uneven tile is, because you've tripped on all of them at least once. One quirky tidbit. Some households place small protective symbols or painted eyes above their doorways to ward off misfortune, believed to help keep illness and bad luck outside. Yours has one too. Does it work? Hard to say. You still have stiff joints, but at least no birds have flown into the house in years. Probably a good sign. You shift on the stool and realize something. The house makes you slow down in ways you didn't expect. You measure your steps. You pause before turning. You lean on walls and doorways like they're old friends offering support. Your granddaughter brings you a cup of watered wine. She sets it down beside you and asks, "Was the house different when you were young?" You chuckle. "No, I was different. I moved faster. I didn't notice the floors trying to kill me." Her laugh bubbles out, warm and genuine. She sits beside you, placing a basket of wool at her feet. As she spins the fibers, you watch her hands move in circles, strong, steady, sure, the same hands you once helped teach to tie knots, measure grain, and carry small amphorae. Now she helps you. The honesty of age becomes clear in the small things. You avoid the ladder to the storage loft because you've learned the hard way that ladders judge the old. You no longer crouch to tend the fire, you direct someone else to do it unless you want your knees to strike again. Even sitting down on cushions requires strategy. You end up lowering yourself with the dignity of a collapsing tent. Historians still argue whether ancient Greek homes truly accommodated the old or simply ignored their needs. Archaeologists find few signs of elder-specific features, suggesting families had to adapt on their own. Perhaps earlier generations didn't expect people to live long enough to need such accommodations. But you're here, defying expectations, outliving friends, and navigating a house that wasn't built for your current flexibility rating. Later, your son returns from his morning tasks carrying a large amphora. He tips it slightly in your direction. "Need help moving this?" Or, Should I leave it as a challenge? Leave it, you say. It'll make the house feel useful. Your second gentle joke of the section. He laughs, sets the amphora down gently, and wipes his brow. Moments like this, shared humour, shared work, remind you that home isn't just a space. It's a relationship, a living thing. As the morning unfolds, you walk the perimeter of the courtyard, steadying yourself on the wall. You study each corner, each patch of sunlight, each well-worn stone. This home has carried you through years of storms, celebrations, births, losses, seasons, festivals, and ordinary days like this one. It has echoed your footsteps from youth through elderhood. Eventually you settle back onto the stool and let out a long breath. This house is too small, you say. Too small for what? Asks your granddaughter. For my patience, you reply, your third and final joke. She rolls her eyes, smiling. In truth, the house is exactly the right size. It holds your world, your memories, your rituals, your family, and your quiet days. You may move more slowly now, but you've learned to savour each step, and the walls that once watched you race through youth now stand steady as you navigate the gentle, deliberate rhythm of old age. The midday sun lifts itself high above the rooftops, casting bright white light across your courtyard. The air hums with warmth and distant chatter, and you can already tell it's the kind of day when the whole city will eventually spill into the streets, drifting toward festivities like bees toward blooming time. Festivals in ancient Greece aren't just events, they're social gravity. And even though your bones protest with every step, you still find yourself drawn to them, participating in your own slow, elder-approved way. You rise from your stool, leaning heavily on your staff. Are we going? Your grandson asks, practically vibrating with the excitement you wish your joints shared. He's already bouncing in small circles, wearing a wreath that's slightly crooked because children's hands never know what even means. Yes, you say, but only if we walk at the pace of a patient tortoise. Your first gentle joke of the section, soft, dry, and completely true. Your family gathers themselves. Your daughter adjusts the basket she's carrying, figs, bread, and a tiny flask of wine for offerings. Your son wipes his hands on his tunic and falls into step on your right, an unspoken promise that he'll catch you if the ground makes any sudden rude decisions. The walk to the festival is its own kind of celebration. People emerge from their homes in clusters, friends whispering, children skipping, elders walking slowly with arms linked, young men shouting jokes that are only funny to other young men. The streets swell with movement. When you reach the festival grounds, the sound hits you first. A wave of music, laughter, clapping, vendors shouting, goats complaining. In the distance, you can smell roasting grains, fresh bread, and the faint tang of wine. It's overwhelming in a strangely comforting way, like stepping into a familiar dream where everything is louder than your ears want and brighter than your eyes expect. A mainstream fact, Greek festivals were central to community life. Whether celebrating the gods, Dionysus, Apollo, Artemis, or local deities, or marking seasonal transitions, these events blended religion, entertainment, and civic identity. Music competitions, poetry recitations, dances, feasts, sacrifices, and even athletic displays filled the air with energy. You remember when you used to join the dances, when your feet were quick and your breath steady. Now you stand at the edge of the festivities, letting younger bodies whirl and leap while you observe, absorbing the rhythm through the soles of your sandals. One young woman pulls you aside. "You danced beautifully when I was small," she says. "Do you still remember the steps?" "I remember them perfectly," you reply. "My knees simply disagree." Your second gentle joke, landing with a warm chuckle. She smiles and gives your hand a squeeze, as if honouring the dancer you once were. Nearby, musicians pluck their lyres, tapping rhythmic beats that ripple through the air. Children chase each other between benches. Older women sit together, gossiping in smooth, practiced tones, occasionally nodding towards someone as if assigning them a temporary reputation. Your mind wanders to one of the festival games from your youth, predicting which neighbour would fall asleep first after midday wine. You always lost. Now, you could win that game without effort. You make your way toward the offering table. Your granddaughter hands you a small fig to place before the shrine. You whisper a short prayer, not loud, not flowery, just honest. Gratitude for another year, another festival, another chance to breathe in this noisy, chaotic beauty. The crowd surges again. Someone begins reciting poetry, loudly, passionately, with the kind of voice that suggests he wants to be remembered in future generations' gossip. Children groan. Adults pretend to listen. You smile, because every festival has exactly one poet who insists on performing. One quirky tidbit surfaces in your memory. Some festivals allowed elders to sit in designated seats of honor, especially during performances or rituals. In practice, these seats were often placed in the hottest sun or directly behind someone very tall. But the idea itself was sweet. You find a comfortable-ish spot beneath a fig tree and lower yourself onto a woven mat. From here, you can watch everything without being jostled. Your son sits beside you. He's trying to hide how carefully he watches you, as if expecting you to faint or wander off. You nudge him with your elbow. "I'm old," you say quietly, "not made of glass." He nods sheepishly. It's the kind of moment that comes naturally now, your relationship shifting from parent-child to something gentler, more mutual, rooted in years of shared life. People pass by and greet you, some with nods, others with smiles, a few with enthusiastic hand waves that make your shoulders hurt just watching them. Some want advice, some want stories, some simply want an elder's acknowledgement, as if your presence blesses their festival experience. Historians still argue whether elders truly enjoyed festivals or attended out of obligation to maintain community presence. You know the truth lies somewhere in the middle. The noise is overwhelming, the crowd's exhausting, the stands uncomfortable. But the feeling of belonging, the sense that you're part of something larger, is worth every ache. As the afternoon deepens, festivities reach their peak. Young men demonstrate strength, lifting stones or racing across the dusty ground. Women sing hymns in clear, steady voices. Children reenact heroic myths with the dramatic flair of overworked actors. Spectators cheer. Dogs bark. Someone drops an amphora with a spectacular crash, and the crowd collectively winces. Your grandson climbs into your lap, not fully aware that your legs now classify him as a boulder. You grunt softly, pat his back, and he settles, watching the dancers with wide eyes. You whisper your third gentle joke into his ear. "If I fall asleep, tell everyone I'm meditating." He giggles, curls closer, and you wrap an arm around him. The music continues. The sun inches lower. The air cools just enough to make your joints complain less. The world swirls around you, colourful, lively, loud, joyful. You sit quietly in the centre of it all, not participating the way you once did, but still deeply part of the tapestry. Festivals now belong to others, the young, the energetic, the aspiring storytellers, and yet, without elders like you, these traditions would lose their roots, their memories, their continuity. You no longer dance, run, or help organise, but you witness. And in ancient Greece, witnessing is its own sacred role. By the time your family gathers to leave, the sky's painted with the soft pinks of early dusk. You rise slowly, leaning on your staff, heart warm from the day's gentle chaos. And as you walk home, surrounded by laughter and fading music, you realise something comforting. Even as your world narrows with age, its beauty remains wide. The morning after the festival arrives slowly, seeping into your home like warm honey. Your body feels every cheer, every step, every moment of yesterday's celebration, especially the parts where you stood for longer than your knees consider humane. But even with the aches, there's a quiet sweetness in the air today. Festivals have a way of stirring memories, and memories have a way of drawing the young toward you suddenly and in large numbers. Today is one of those days. You're seated beneath the olive tree, letting your spine stretch itself awake one cautious vertebra at a time, when the first child appears, your grandson, clutching a wooden toy sword that has clearly lost at least 3 battles with the ground. "Can you fix this?" he asks. "I can advise the fix," you say. "Fixing it myself would require bending." Your first gentle joke delivered in the tone of someone who has deeply negotiated with gravity. He plops onto the ground beside you, and not 2 breaths later, 2 more neighbourhood children appear. Then another, and another. Soon you're surrounded by an entire semicircle of small, eager faces. You sigh dramatically. "Is this an invasion?" "Yes," your granddaughter says proudly. "We want stories." You look at them, hope shining in their eyes, dirt smudged on their elbows, hair tousled by the festival wind, and you feel that familiar tug. You may no longer be able to run, climb, or lift heavy amphorae, but storytelling. That belongs to you now, and the children treat you like a living library, one with creaky hinges but excellent content. A mainstream historical fact rises naturally in your mind. In many Greek households, elders served as informal historians, passing down memories of past wars, old customs, family origins, and lessons wrapped inside myths. With few written records used in daily life, memory was a treasured archive, and elders were its caretakers. So you settle in, you clear your throat. The children lean forward. One of them accidentally kicks your sandal in excitement. You ignore the pain, because storytelling is sacred and so are overly enthusiastic toes. You begin with something gentle, a story about the time your village faced an unexpected storm, and everyone worked together to save the roof tiles before they blew into the next polis. You weave in humour, of course, describing how your younger self slipped in mud, fell into a basket of olives, and emerged looking like a poorly seasoned hero. The children erupt with giggles. One quirky tidbit enters your tale, the old belief that loud thunder meant Zeus was practicing throwing javelins across the sky. A few children gasp. One looks up, squinting suspiciously at the clouds. "Did you ever meet Zeus?" a small boy asks. "Only once," you say gravely. "In a dream, or possibly after drinking too much watered wine. Hard to say." Your second gentle joke lands well. The kids howl. You shift the story to real. History. Battles you witnessed, not fought. Harvests that failed. Festivals long gone. A comet that streaked across the night sky when you were young. You tell them how everyone gathered outside their homes, staring upward, half-awed, half-terrified, because no one agreed whether it was a divine sign or just the gods cleaning their celestial dustbin. Historians still argue whether ancient Greeks interpreted comets as omens of doom, glory, or simply odd celestial events. You remember the debates well. People argued passionately, loudly, and often ignorantly, so basically nothing has changed. Your granddaughter scoots closer, placing her head on your knee. She's heard some of these stories before, but children never mind repetition. If anything, repetition makes stories feel like home. Another child asks, "Is everything you say true?" You raise an eyebrow. "Everything is true," you say, "but some truths wear the clothes of stories to walk among us." The children fall silent, absorbing the phrase with the seriousness only children and philosophers manage. You lean back, letting the memories flow more freely. Your mentor who taught you to carve wood, your mother's strange remedy for fevers involving olives and vigorous scolding, the traveller from another region who claimed he'd seen snow thicker than wool. You still don't believe him. Eventually your son joins the group. He stands just outside the circle, listening with the soft smile of someone recognizing fragments of his childhood within the stories. "You're telling that one again?" he asks. "Traditions must be upheld," you say, "especially the ones that embarrass me." The children nod sagely, approving this reasoning. Your son sits down beside you, crossing his legs with the kind of flexibility you vaguely remember being possible. He adds his own memory, about how you once tried to teach him to fish and ended up catching a sandal instead of a fish. You maintain that the sandal attacked first. Your third soft joke of the section slips out as you reply, "That sandal was ferocious. I saved you." The children clap as though you performed a heroic deed. As the morning deepens, the stories branch outward. Gods, monsters, storms, ships, seasons, old friends, lost traditions, and the little human errors that make memories worth retelling. You give them both the mythic and the mundane, because in ancient Greece the line between the two is thin enough to wander across without noticing. You end with a quiet lesson. Not a lecture, just a small truth tucked gently into the closing. Remember, you say, stories are bridges. They let us cross from what was to what is without losing our way. The children sit very still. Even your grandson, who normally wiggles like a trapped mouse, is silent. Slowly they rise and wander back to their families, carrying your words with them like tiny offerings. Your son pats your shoulder. "You teach them more than you know," he says quietly. You watch the children scatter through the courtyard, laughing and tagging each other with shrieks of joy. Your heart warms in that slow, steady elder way. Teaching the young doesn't require classrooms or scrolls, just memory, patience, and a heart that has lived long enough to hold more stories than regrets. And today, your stories settle gently into the next generation, roots stretching out into their growing lives. The children's laughter lingers long after they scatter, echoing lightly against the courtyard walls as you breathe in the warm afternoon air. The sun hangs lazily overhead, and for a while you sit in peaceful stillness, until a sharp twinge in your lower back reminds you that peace is, in fact, conditional. A slow sigh escapes you. Getting older in ancient Greece means living with a rotating cast of ailments, some irritating, some alarming, some so strange you're convinced the gods are inventing new creative challenges just to stay entertained. You shift on your stool, adjusting your weight, adjusting your expectations, adjusting everything that can be adjusted without something popping. Your granddaughter notices your expression instantly. "Back again?" she asks gently. "Yes," you groan. "It seems determined to narrate every movement I make." Your first gentle joke of the section, delivered through clenched teeth but with good humour. She helps you rise and you lean heavily on your staff as the familiar ache travels down your legs. Nothing dramatic, just the quiet protest of joints that have worked loyally for decades and now insist on quarterly performance reviews. As you shuffle across the courtyard, you reflect on how illness and frailty weave themselves into your days. The ancient world doesn't have physicians on every corner. Instead, you rely on a patchwork of remedies, rituals, common sense, and the occasional prayer whispered in desperation. A mainstream historical fact slips naturally into thought. Ancient Greek medicine was a combination of practical herbal knowledge, personal experience, and the evolving theories of early physicians like Hippocrates. Illness was often explained through imbalances, too much heat or cold, wetness or dryness. Your body, in other words, is basically a clay pot of wandering elements that occasionally rebel. You settle yourself on a cushion, slowly, one limb at a time, like lowering priceless pottery onto a shelf. Your daughter appears with a small bowl of warm oil. Without a word, she begins massaging your hands, working the stiffness from your fingers. The warmth sinks into your skin like a blessing. "You should let the healer look at you," she says. You make a face. The healer is a kind man, but he always smells strongly of fennel and asks philosophical questions when you're simply trying not to collapse. "I don't need him," you say. "I need a new spine." Your second soft joke lands easily. Your daughter laughs and taps your forehead lightly. Still, she insists on preparing a remedy, a mixture of crushed mint, warm olive oil, and a few mysterious herbs she claims she learned from a neighbour's aunt's cousin's grandmother. You nod politely, because at this age you've learned that arguing with enthusiastic family members is more exhausting than the ailment itself. She rubs the mixture onto your lower back. The warmth spreads slowly, soothing the tension. You exhale, a long relieved breath that feels like releasing a story you've held too tightly. But illness in ancient Greece isn't always predictable. Some days your joints ache as if a storm is brewing. Some days your stomach rebels. Some days your eyesight blurs and the world becomes a watercolour painting you didn't ask for. And some days you feel entirely fine until one wrong step reminds you that your bones have not been new since Homer was a young man. One quirky tidbit rises to mind. Some Greeks believed that certain illnesses were caused by wandering spirits or displeased gods, especially those that arrived suddenly or behaved unpredictably. You've heard elderly neighbours blame everything from headaches to stubbed toes on divine mischief, and honestly, some days you consider agreeing. Your son appears now, carrying a clay cup filled with warm broth. He hands it to you with a seriousness usually reserved for temple sacrifices. You sip it slowly, letting the warmth settle in your chest. "You need rest," he says. "I've been resting for 40 years, you reply. "My body just refuses to recognize it." Your third gentle joke delivered with a sigh. He chuckles, shaking his head. The afternoon stretches on and you shift again, carefully, deliberately, like testing the stability of a bridge. Your granddaughter brings you a small stool to prop up your feet. Your daughter adds another cushion behind your back. Your son checks the hearth to ensure the courtyard stays warm enough for your joints. You're surrounded by care. Gentle, persistent, sometimes excessive, but never unwelcome. Historians still argue whether elders in ancient Greece received dedicated care or were expected to push through illness as best they could. Archaeological evidence shows signs of healed injuries and long-term ailments, suggesting families often supported their elderly. Written sources, however, sometimes depict old age as a lonely struggle against failing health. Like most truths, yours lies somewhere in between. Frailty is real, but so is family. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of daily life around you. Chickens scratch the ground. Someone chops wood. A neighbour calls for her children. The breeze carries the scent of thyme and warm earth. In this moment of stillness, you're acutely aware of something. Illness doesn't diminish your place in the world. It simply shifts it. You're no longer the strongest hands in the household. You're not the one leading tasks or carrying loads. But you're the elder whose presence brings continuity, whose memory binds generations, and whose quiet wisdom fills the spaces between chores and celebrations. Your aches remind you that your body is aging. Your family reminds you that you are cherished. Your breath steadies. The warmth of the oil seeps deeper into your bones. In ancient Greece, growing old isn't free of pain, but it's rich with care, ritual, and meaning. You lean back, letting your body rest, letting the day soften around you. And for the first time since morning, your breath flows easy and unhurried. The next morning brings a gentler kind of light, soft, cool, stretching across your courtyard like a careful hand. You rise slowly, grateful that your back isn't staging a full rebellion today. Your joints are still stiff, of course. They always are. But the mildness of the ache gives you just enough confidence to wander outside and let your thoughts drift towards something that has been on your mind lately. What the philosophers say about growing old. Because in ancient Greece, everyone has an opinion. Sometimes loudly, sometimes poetically, sometimes both at the same time. And philosophers? They have many opinions about old age, each one contradicting the last. It's like watching a group of very intelligent men argue over who left the amphora open. You settle onto your stool beneath the olive tree. The morning breeze stirs the leaves, making them shimmer like tiny green flames. You take a deep breath, letting the air fill your chest, and feel a rare sense of calm settling into your bones. Your grandson wanders over and sits cross-legged beside you. "What are you thinking about?" he asks. "Longevity," you answer, and why philosophers believe it happens to other people and not them. Your first soft joke lands gently. He snorts. You lean back and let your mind wander. A mainstream historical fact rises naturally. Greek philosophers, from Plato and Aristotle to the Stoics, wrote extensively about aging, virtue, memory, the decline of the body, and the persistence or deterioration of the mind. Some praised old age as a time of wisdom. Others saw it as a decline to be endured with dignity. Still others weren't sure what to think and changed their opinions depending on their mood. You've lived long enough to find humour in all of them. You think of Solon, who claimed that every decade brings a new kind of understanding. You certainly agree with that, though you're still waiting for the decade where your spine stops sounding like a breaking amphora every time you adjust yourself on a stool. You think of the Stoics, who said that suffering comes from resisting what nature has already decided. Lovely thought, but they clearly never tried arguing with knee pain. Your granddaughter joins the circle now, sitting quietly with her basket of wool. "Can you tell us what the philosophers say?" she asks. You exhale through your nose, amused. "They say many things," you tell her, "mostly that they're right." She giggles. You begin with a story, not because philosophers always told stories, but because you're better at them than long lectures. You describe how old age was seen by some thinkers as a return to calm, a time when passions cool, when the mind grows spacious, when the noise of youth falls away. And yes, that's true. On days when your joints cooperate and your family isn't arguing about who misplaced the ladle. But then there are the other philosophers, the ones who insisted that old age is a burden, a slow unravelling of the body, a narrowing of opportunities, a reminder that life has limits. You don't disagree, but you also feel they forgot something important. Old age is full of moments. Sweet, small, strange, surprising moments, like the one you're having now, sitting with grandchildren who actually listen. One quirky tidbit floats to mind. Some philosophers believe that elders drifted closer to the divine simply because they were nearer to death. That thought used to unsettle you. Now, you see it differently. Maybe the divine is simply anything that feels calm, meaningful, or connected. If that's true, then yes, you're closer to it now than ever before. You stretch your legs slowly, carefully, and point toward the street. A small group of older men are gathering under the shade of a fig tree, a daily informal symposium that you sometimes join. Your grandson brightens. "Are you going to talk with the philosophers?" "I'm going to talk with men who think they are philosophers," you correct him. Your second joke, delivered with affectionate mischief. He laughs. You make your way over to the group, each step measured. When you arrive, they greet you warmly. Nods, waves, and one man who insists on gripping your forearm like he's testing your remaining strength. He does this daily. You tolerate it daily. They're already mid-argument, of course. Today's topic seems to be whether old age sharpens the mind or dulls it. You lower yourself onto a stone bench, carefully because dignity has limits, and listen for a while. One man argues that age brings clarity, that the young are enslaved by urges while elders see truth plainly. Another insists that memory fades and therefore the mind weakens. A third merely grumbles that his feet hurt and that settles the matter. Historians still argue whether Greek elders actively participated in philosophical debate or simply listened while younger men dominated with louder voices. In your experience, elders participate whenever they're awake, hydrated and not distracted by the urgent need to stretch their legs. Eventually, someone asks for your opinion. You take your time answering, not because of suspense, but because you need a moment to remember what you were about to say. Finally, you reply, "Old age sharpens what matters and softens what doesn't." The group goes quiet. Then they nod, slowly, thoughtfully, as if you've just delivered divine wisdom instead of something that came to you between back spasms. Your third gentle joke emerges as you add, "But it does nothing for my knees. Philosophers have no solution for those." Laughter ripples through the group. The debate continues, but now it feels lighter, more playful. You watch the younger adults pass by, some listening briefly before moving on. You notice birds hopping along the ground, searching for crumbs. A distant lyre hums from a household where someone is practicing a festival hymn. You sit in the middle of it all, old, steady, thoughtful. Your body may ache, your memory may blur, but your mind is far from gone. You're not a philosopher, you're something they often forget to be, a person who has lived a full, ordinary, meaningful life. And in ancient Greece, ordinary lives carry their own kind of wisdom, quiet, earned, and deeply human. The midday warmth softens into a gentler glow as the hours pass, and you find yourself drifting toward the edge of your courtyard, your usual spot for watching the day breathe. There's something comforting about observing the subtle shifts in the world around you, especially now that your own pace has slowed enough to truly notice them. You lower yourself onto your favourite stool, wincing only slightly as your knees issue their daily complaint. A faint breeze stirs the olive branches overhead, making their silvery undersides shimmer like a school of fish turning in sunlight. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of dust, wild thyme, and distant sea air. The atmosphere itself feels thick with passing time, because in old age the seasons become your clock, gentle reminders of where you've been and where you're quietly heading. Your grandson appears beside you with a fig in one hand and a stick in the other, ready to narrate an epic battle between the two. You nod at him, amused. Children measure time in games and snacks. Adults measure time in chores and obligations. But elders, you measure time in seasons. "Is it hot today?" your grandson asks. "No," you say. You'll know it's truly hot when the air tastes like cooked olives. Your first gentle joke of the section. He laughs, though he's probably imagining chewing warm olives. You lean your head back as the sun shifts, remembering how sharply you used to feel the seasons when you were younger. Winter was hard, stone-cold nights, icy mornings, stiff fingers that refused to weave or carve. Summer was relentless, dry air, burning ground, sweat clinging to tunics. Spring smelled like promise. Autumn felt like exhaling. Now, though, the seasons feel different, slower, rounder, more intimate. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Agricultural life in ancient Greece was shaped by seasonal rhythms. Planting and harvest cycles determined everything. Food supply, festival timing, family labour, even religious rituals. For young people, the seasons meant work. For elders, they meant memory, markers of all the years lived before. Your granddaughter joins you, plopping onto the ground with youthful enthusiasm that makes your joints ache in sympathy. She brings a little bowl of olives and places it by your side. "It's cooler today," she says. "Good for your back." "I'll take the blessing," you reply. "The gods rarely give me discounts anymore." Your second soft joke, dry as summer dust. She giggles, nudging your arm. As the afternoon unfolds, you watch the world shift subtly around you. A shepherd guides his flock across the hill. Bees dance lazily between blossoms. Somewhere nearby, someone is repairing a roof, the rhythmic thud, thud, thud echoing like a heartbeat. Seasons in your youth meant labour, ploughing, sowing, weeding, gathering. Now they speak to you through smaller signs, the way the wind changes scent, the way your knees forecast rain, the way the cats seek shade at midday, the way the stones stay warm long after sunset. Historians still argue whether elders in ancient Greece were more sensitive to seasonal changes because of environmental awareness or simply because age made the body more reactive. You suspect both. Your joints detect storms before the clouds appear. Your back senses cold before the hearth does. You've become a living weather oracle, though no one writes hymns for that. You rise slowly, slowly enough that your granddaughter instinctively reaches out a hand. You take it. Pride has its limits. Together you walk toward the garden, where the first hints of autumn colour touch the vines. You point out the figs that are nearly ripe, the leaves just beginning to curl, the soil shifting from hard summer dryness to something looser. Everything changes, you say softly. Even you, she asks. Especially me, you think. But instead you say, I've been changing since the day I was born. I'm just slower at it now. The breeze picks up again, cool and steady. A few leaves drift down, spiralling in a dance so gentle it almost feels intentional. Your granddaughter catches one in her hands and smiles triumphantly. Look, she says, the first full leaf. It's not full yet, your grandson protests, sprinting over. Tell that to the leaf, she retorts. You laugh. The world through the eyes of children is dramatic and literal, while your elder vision sees the gradual shifts beneath the obvious ones. You sit again, letting the children debate seasonal authority. Their voices blend with the whisper of wind, the creak of the old fig tree, the distant call of a vendor selling grapes. In your youth, seasons were cycles of labour. In adulthood, they were cycles of responsibility. Now, they are cycles of reflection. Your third and final joke slips out softly. If the seasons keep changing this fast, I'll have to ask Zeus to slow down time for me. Your granddaughter pats your hand. Maybe he listens better to old people. You smile. If he does, I'll ask for the return of my good knee. Dusk begins to roll gently across the sky, painting it in soft purples and pale gold. The air cools. Shadows lengthen. The chickens settle noisily in their coop. You feel your age today, not as weight, but as awareness. Each season carries your memories. Each breeze holds a piece of your past. Each shifting shadow reminds you that life moves, always. Slower now, perhaps. Gentler, definitely. But still full, still yours. And in ancient Greece, growing old means learning to measure time not by clocks or deadlines, but by the quiet, steady turning of the world around you. Night settles gently over your home, the kind of soft, velvety darkness that feels more like a blanket than a shadow. You ease yourself onto your stool beneath the olive tree, your evening throne, and listen as the last threads of daylight unravel across the courtyard. Somewhere nearby, a goat bleats with the melodramatic flair of a tragic actor. Somewhere farther, someone laughs too loudly after too much watered wine. But here, in your small world, things grow quiet. Quiet enough for you to notice the subtler parts of growing old in ancient Greece. The way neighbours treat you, the way gossip flows around you like a river around a stone, the way loneliness sometimes drifts in like a cold breeze, uninvited but familiar. Your daughter steps into the courtyard, brushing flour from her hands. Are you comfortable? She asks. If discomfort ever leaves me, I'll send out a celebration notice, you reply. Your first soft joke of the section, dry, resigned, and entirely true. She smiles, shakes her head, and disappears back inside. As you sit, you hear the familiar clinks of amphorae from the house next door. Your neighbours are settling in for the night too. You know their rhythms intimately. Who wakes early, who sings while cleaning, who shouts at the chickens for reasons no one fully understands. You've lived beside these people for decades, some longer than your children have been alive, and yet relationships change with age. A mainstream historical fact surfaces. In ancient Greece, community bonds were vital. Neighbours often worked together, borrowed tools, shared food, gossiped freely, and supported each other during crises. Elders were part of this web, though sometimes placed slightly to the edges, not ignored but treated with a kind of gentle distance, as though old age made you simultaneously important and fragile. You feel that now. Take, for example, your next-door neighbour, Thalaya. Wonderful cook, terrible singer, excellent rumour collector. She appears at your gate holding a small plate of honey-coated barley cakes. "I made too many," she says. This is a lie. Thalaya never makes too many. She makes exactly enough, then one extra specifically to have an excuse to visit you. You accept the plate with a nod. "Your generosity is endless," you say. "My curiosity is endless," she corrects, sitting beside you uninvited. "But you don't mind." "I heard," she begins, lowering her voice dramatically, "that the fish vendor argued with his wife so loudly today that the olives fell off their branches in embarrassment." Your granddaughter, passing by, snorts. "Olives don't fall from shame." Thalaya gives her a look that says, "You weren't there. You don't know." This is the rhythm of community life. Gossip that blends fact and fiction. Kindness that arrives disguised as snacks. Neighbours who treat you like a treasured relic rather than someone fragile. But the truth is, aging can be lonely too. When the neighbours leave, when your family quiets, when the night deepens and your bones ache more than usual, you feel the shape of absence. People you once knew, friends, relatives, companions, no longer walk these streets. Their laughter no longer echoes. Across the courtyard, you remember them as clearly as you feel the evening breeze on your cheeks. One quirky tidbit emerges from your memories. Some Greeks believed that older people were more prone to loneliness because their inner fire had cooled, making them less eager to seek company. You'd argue that older people are simply tired of listening to the same 3 arguments young people recycle every week. Your son joins you now, carrying a small oil lamp. He lights it with the practiced ease of someone who has done it every night for years. The warm glow spills across your face, softening the lines age has carved there. "Mother visited earlier," he says. "She said you looked lonely." "I wasn't lonely," you reply. "I was savouring the quiet." He raises a brow. "You were sighing dramatically." "That was my breathing," you say. Your second joke delivered indignantly, exactly as intended. He laughs, shaking his head as he places the lamp near you. The flame flickers, painting gentle patterns on the ground. The hum of night insects rises and falls, a natural lullaby. Neighbours pass by the gate, offering greetings, well wishes, or simply raising a hand in quiet respect. You return each gesture with a nod. It comforts you, being known, being seen, even in passing. But you're also aware of your shifting place in the social fabric. Once, you were at the centre of gatherings. Once, you carried news, opinions, jokes, stories. Now people bring those things to you, partly out of respect, partly out of affection, and partly because they assume you won't walk far enough to gather gossip on your own anymore. Your granddaughter returns with a folded cloth. She drapes it over your lap without asking. "It's getting chilly," she says. "That's not the air," you reply. "That's my knees predicting tomorrow's weather." Your third and final joke arrives gently. She smirks. Historians still argue whether the elderly in ancient Greece experienced more loneliness than younger adults, or whether close-knit households balanced it out. The evidence suggests a mix. Elders were surrounded by people yet sometimes felt apart from them. Present but no longer central. Loved but occasionally overlooked. You feel both truths tonight. The stars appear overhead. Slowly, timidly, like shy guests at a late gathering. The oil lamp flickers, the air cools. Your family drifts closer, settling on stools, mats, and low benches around you. No one says much. They don't need to. Your loneliness softens, not because the aches vanish, but because you are reminded of something simple and profound. You are part of this home, this community, this quiet evening. Even as age nudges you toward the edges of life's bustle, you're never truly alone. And in ancient Greece, that might be one of the greatest gifts an elder can receive. The night passes with its usual blend of half-sleep, shifting joints, and dreams that feel more like rearranged memories than stories. When morning finally stretches across your courtyard, pale and quiet, you know today will bring a different kind of weight. Not the ache in your knees or the stiffness in your shoulders, but the softer, heavier gravity of reflection. Because whether you admit it aloud or not, you've entered the phase of life where you think more about endings than beginnings. You rise slowly, leaning hard on your staff, and make your way to the hearth. Your daughter is already there preparing breakfast. humming an old melody she learned from her grandmother. The sound carries you back decades in an instant. She looks up. "Sit," she says gently. "I'll bring it to you." You smile. "If I sit now, I may never rise again." Your first soft joke of the section, delivered with the familiar resignation that only amused elders can master. She rolls her eyes fondly and brings you a small bowl of warm barley porridge anyway. You settle onto your stool and listen to the morning unfold. The soft coo of pigeons, the scrape of a neighbour's broom, the distant call of a fisherman heading toward the shore. Life continues its patterns around you, steady and predictable, even as your own patterns begin to narrow. A mainstream historical fact enters your thoughts. In ancient Greece, elders were expected to prepare their household for the future, settling disputes, passing down property, arranging final wishes, guiding younger family members, and ensuring the household gods would continue receiving proper offerings long after they were gone. You feel those expectations now. Your son joins you with a clay tablet and stylus. He kneels beside you, a little too earnestly. "We should talk about the vineyard," he says, "and the tools, and—" "I know," you interrupt softly. "I've been thinking about it." He looks relieved, then concerned, then shy, then determined. All in the span of 3 seconds. You pat his arm. He's a grown man, a father, a provider, but in this moment he looks painfully young. "I'll tell you everything," you say, but not in one breath. These things take time. One quirky tidbit drifts to mind. Some Greeks believed that if elders left their final wishes unspoken, their spirits might linger unhappily after death, tugging at the corners of the household. Whether or not that's true, people certainly behave as if it is. No one wants a cranky ancestor rattling amphorae at night. You take your time, slowly outlining which fields belong to which branch of the family, who receives your carving tools, though you suspect none of them will be used again, who should care for the household shrine, and who gets your favourite stool. Your granddaughter loudly claims the stool without hesitation. Your son writes everything down, his expression growing steadier with each detail. This, you realise, is another kind of legacy, clarity, order, care. But there's a different kind of preparation you must make today, one far harder than dividing property. You rise, slowly, painfully, but intentionally, and walk toward the small family shrine in the courtyard. Your steps are deliberate, like approaching an old friend with whom you share unspoken debts. You light a small piece of incense. Your hands tremble, but the flame catches anyway. Smoke curls upward in a thin, fragile ribbon. Your daughter stands nearby, understanding without words. She places a small offering beside yours, a fig fresh and sweet. You close your eyes. "I'm thanking them," you murmur, "for the time I've had, and asking for peace in the time I have left." Your voice is steady, though your chest tightens with emotion. Your granddaughter slips her hand into yours. "Are you afraid?" she asks quietly. You look down at her small fingers curled around your worn ones. You breathe slowly. "Not afraid," you say. "Just aware." And that is the truest thing you've said all morning. You return to your stool. The sunlight is warmer now, but it casts longer shadows. You feel those shadows stretching across your heart. Not ominous, not cold, just honest. Historians still debate whether Greek elders faced death with acceptance or fear. Some texts portray old age as a gentle winding down toward the inevitable, accompanied by rituals and community support. Others describe elders clinging to life anxiously, terrified of the unknown. Your truth? Somewhere in between. You're not terrified, but you're not entirely ready either. Your son sits beside you again. "What else do you want us to know?" he asks. You think long and hard. Then you tell him the one lesson old age has taught you more clearly than any philosopher. Care for each other, you say, even when it's difficult, even when you're tired. Family must last longer than memory. He nods, swallowing hard. The afternoon drifts in. The air grows still. Your family moves around you with new softness. Voices lowered, hands lingering, eyes watching you with quiet understanding. Your third gentle joke slips out as you rise to stretch. "If I knew getting old involved this much hovering, I would have pretended to be young for another decade." Your daughter snorts. Your granddaughter laughs. Your son pretends not to smile. Evening settles. The shadows lengthen. and you feel something gentle within you loosen. Not fear, not sorrow, but a deep, abiding acceptance. Your life is not ending today, probably not tomorrow. But the path ahead is narrow now, quiet, peaceful. You walk it with grace, and your family walks beside you, carrying your legacy in their hearts long before your story reaches its final breath. Dawn arrives softly, brushing pale light over your courtyard like a gentle hand. You wake to the familiar rustling of your family preparing for the day, but something feels different, quieter, heavier, as though the air itself has decided to move with extra care around you. Maybe it's the dreams you had last night, blurry and echoing with old voices, or maybe it's the simple truth that, at your age, thoughts of death drift in and out like distant waves, never demanded, never ignored. You sit up slowly, joints crackling like a basket of dry reeds. Your son helps you to your feet, his hands strong and warm beneath your elbows. You pretend you don't need the help. He pretends you didn't wobble. This is the unspoken dance of elderhood. "Take your time," he murmurs. "I take nothing but time," you reply, voice dry as winter grass. Your first gentle joke, weak but earnest. He smiles, relieved to find humour still living in your bones. Today you feel compelled to move, to see, to touch, to witness. You take your staff and shuffle toward the street, where the morning air carries smells of baking bread, crushed olives, and the faint tang of sea wind. You breathe deeply. You know this village better than your own palms. You've seen it from every angle, as a child running barefoot through dust, as a young adult full of ambition, as a parent, a worker, a storyteller, and now, as an elder, walking slowly among homes that hold more memories than people. Your first stop is the home of your oldest friend. He passed away several harvests ago, but his daughter still keeps a small shrine by the door. You pause, touch the stone gently, and whisper a greeting. His laughter, long buried in your memory, rises again. Faint, warm, familiar. A mainstream historical fact settles into your thoughts. Death in ancient Greece was not a distant abstraction. It lived openly among the people. Families maintained household shrines, tended graves regularly, offered food and wine to the dead, and believed deeply that the departed continued to influence the living. Death was not hidden. It was part of the home, part of the rhythm, part of the story. You feel that truth deeply today. As you continue walking, a young woman approaches with a basket of flowers. She offers you one, an anemone, delicate and brilliantly purple. "For your ancestors," she says softly. You accept it, touched. "They had good taste," you reply. Your second gentle joke, lighter this time, almost playful. She smiles and moves on, leaving you with a flower cupped between your fingers like a small piece of dawn. You make your way to the outskirts of the village, where the burial grounds rest under a grove of cypress trees. The path is quiet, shaded, and speckled with drifting leaves. You walk slowly, each step a small act of remembrance. The graves are simple, stone markers, clay offerings, faded wreaths. You recognize many names. You whisper greetings to them as if they might answer. In a way they do. Memories stir, faces rise behind your eyes. You recall voices, gestures, stories, entire lives reduced to gentle echoes held in your heart. A quirky tidbit floats through your mind. Some Greeks believed that the dead could influence dreams, sending warnings, comfort, or guidance. You wonder if last night's dreams, with their strange clarity, were a message, or maybe just your mind stitching old stories together like a worn tapestry. You sit on a smooth stone near the resting place of your grandparents. You place the anemone on the earth and trace a small circle in the dirt with the end of your staff. "I'm still here," you whisper, "for now." The breeze shifts, nudging your robe gently like a subtle acknowledgement. Your granddaughter arrives moments later, breathless, worried. "You walked here alone?" "Not alone," you say softly, tapping the earth beneath your feet. "I had company." Your third and final gentle joke of the section, quiet, heartfelt. She sits beside you, slipping her small hand into yours. For a while, neither of you speak. The silence is not heavy, just full. You finally rise, slowly, painfully, and begin the walk home. Your granddaughter stays close, offering help you pretend not to need. The sun is higher now, scattering light across the rooftops and stone paths in soft patches. As you enter the courtyard, your family greets you with relief mixed with tender reproach. You offer a tired smile, sinking onto your stool. Historians still argue whether Greeks viewed death with fear or acceptance. Some writings suggest terror, shadows of the underworld, uncertainty, loss of identity. Others describe death as a transition, a return, a quiet dissolving into memory and myth. You find yourself somewhere between both views, not afraid but profoundly aware. Death is not here yet, but it is near enough to acknowledge, near enough to respect. Your family bustles around you, preparing food, tending the hearth, sweeping the courtyard. Life continues, warm, messy, noisy, human. The very things you'll leave behind someday are the things that make the present feel full. You watch them with soft, tired eyes, not fearing the end, not welcoming it either, simply learning to walk the narrow bridge between the two. And in ancient Greece, that balance is one of the most sacred duties of old age. Morning light drifts softly into your home, settling over the courtyard like a warm, familiar blanket. You sit quietly beneath the olive tree, your old faithful companion, letting the sun warm your shoulders, letting your breath fall into the slow rhythm that age has gifted you. Today feels different. Not heavy, not sorrowful, just full. Full in the way a final chapter feels full, carrying all the pages before it. Your granddaughter approaches with a cup of watered wine. She offers it carefully, both hands cradling the cup, as if handing you something sacred. "You look peaceful," she says. "Don't let that fool you," you reply. "Peace is just my face's default now." Your first gentle joke of the section. She laughs, and the sound lifts your heart. You sip the wine slowly, savouring the softness of it. The courtyard stirs around you, the clucking of chickens, the whisper of leaves, the low murmur of your family beginning their day. These sounds have been the soundtrack of your life for decades, and each one carries a memory wrapped inside it. Your son joins you, sitting on a low stool. He has been quieter lately, watching you the way someone watches the fading glow of a hearth, warm, grateful, aware of its fragility. "We've been talking," he begins, "about everything you told us." You nod. You know what he means, the vineyard, the tools, the shrine, the stories, the legacy. "I want you to know," he says softly. "We'll take care of everything, exactly as you wished." "I should hope so," you reply. "Otherwise I'll come back and rearrange your amphory." Your second light joke delivered with a raised eyebrow. He chuckles, but emotion flickers in his eyes. You turn your gaze upward. The sky is a brilliant blue, one of those perfect Greek mornings where the air feels clean enough to drink. You've lived through thousands of days like this, each one different, each one ordinary, each one precious without ever realizing it at the time. A mainstream historical fact comes to mind. Ancient Greeks believed strongly in kleos, the idea of legacy, reputation, the echo of one's life after death. Warriors sought it in battle. Poets sought it in verse. Elders found it in their families, in the stories they passed down, in the rituals they preserved, in the quiet, steady imprint of their presence. You feel that truth now. Your granddaughter settles beside you, leaning her head lightly against your arm. "Will you tell us a story?" she asks. "Another one?" you grumble. "At this rate, you'll use up all my memories." "You have endless memories," she says confidently. You smile. "I used to think so." Your third gentle joke, soft, wistful. But you tell the story anyway. You speak of how you built this house with your father, stone by stone. You tell them about the time a goat chased you across the courtyard, about the festival where you danced until sunrise, about the birth of each child, each grandchild, about your greatest mistakes and your quietest victories, about the day you realized you were old, about the day you stopped minding it. Your family gathers around you in a loose circle, sons, daughters, grandchildren, listening as though your voice carries pieces of the gods themselves. You watch their faces, illuminated by morning light, and feel something inside your chest loosen gently. Not pain, not fear, something like completion. Historians still argue whether ancient elders understood their own legacy, or if they simply lived until they couldn't anymore. But you know now that legacy isn't something you leave behind, it's something you build every day you're alive. Your breath feels slower now, not strained, just slower. Your hands rest softly in your lap. Your staff leans against the olive tree, casting a long, thin shadow across the ground. Life has narrowed, yes. Your world is small, your days are simple. But everything you've lived, all the seasons, the work, the laughter, the losses, the rituals, the stories, has led to this moment of peaceful stillness. You've spent a lifetime carving your place in the world. Now the world holds you gently. Your granddaughter traces the lines on your hand. "Will you always be with us?" she asks, voice tiny, trembling. You lift her chin. "Always," you say. "In stories, in memories, in the house I helped build, in the way you sing while working, in the way your father tends the vineyard, in every morning like this one." Her eyes glisten, but she nods bravely. And you sit there, old, tired, full, surrounded by everything that made your life meaningful. You're ready to become memory. Not today, not this hour, but soon, and gently. The olive tree rustles overhead, scattering a few leaves like blessings at your feet. The air grows still. Your family breathes with you, around you, for you. Legacy isn't the echo of your name. It's the warmth you leave in the hearts of those who carry your story. And in ancient Greece, that is the quiet triumph of growing old. The day softens around you now, the light growing warmer, smoother, stretching itself into the long hush of late afternoon. The courtyard quiets, the world settles, and your breath grows slow, deep, and steady. You sit there beneath the olive tree, letting the shade fold over you like a soft blanket. The air moves gently, just enough to cool your cheeks, just enough to remind you that time, even now, moves with kindness. Your family drifts in and out of the courtyard, soft footsteps, quiet voices, the gentle rhythm of a household wrapping itself in evening calm. You hear someone arranging bowls, someone whispering to a child, someone humming an old tune that seems older than memory itself. It all blends together into a soothing tapestry of life still unfolding around you. Your hands rest easily in your lap. Your shoulders loosen. The sounds of the village, distant chatter, a low bleat from a goat, the muted clatter of pottery, fade into gentle background notes. Nothing demands your attention. Nothing pulls you forward. You simply exist, lightly, peacefully, as the shadows lengthen across the ground. You let the warmth of the day linger on your skin. You let the breeze settle your thoughts. You let your breath fall into a soft, unhurried rhythm. Every inhale feels like gathering calm. Every exhale feels like releasing the last traces of tension. And as the final light of the day drifts away, you ease into the gentle truth that you have lived fully, deeply, and well. Your story lingers like the fading glow on the horizon, quiet, steady, comforting. You close your eyes. The world softens to a whisper. Everything is peaceful now. Everything is calm.